understand everything I'm saying. And if you don't, this is gonna be like I'm speaking a foreign language. But I hope that you'll still be able to enjoy this video just as nice whispered content and somebody babbling away about something they enjoy. So, where to start? I think I'm gonna start with Sage. So, I actually main White Healer. Some people call it White Mage. I, for some reason, always call it White Healer or White Healer Mage. And sometimes people look at me funny, but I guess it is what it is, right? Like, the job short, like the, not shortcut, but the acronym is WHM. Like, what else could that be but White Healer Mage? Like, it's White Healer Mage, but whatever. Okay, anyway, that is such a tangent. So yeah, my favorite role to play is healer. I've played all of the healers. I'm best at White Mage, and the other ones I just kind of understand, but like maybe I suck, I don't really know. So of course, I'm most excited about Sage because it's gonna be a new healer, and I think the game hasn't had a new healing job in like 2 or 3 years, but I'm not entirely sure. I know the new classes for Shadowbringer, which came out in like July 2019. I believe the new one for that was Gunbreaker and Dancer, so it's been a couple expansions. I'm not sure, but I think Astrologian is maybe the newest, or I could be completely wrong. Maybe it's Scholar. Oh, I really have no clue. I haven't been playing the game for that long. I've been playing for like a little over a year and a half. I started in December 2019, but I did take a couple, like some months off that I didn't play, and then, yeah, so I just say roughly a year and a half. So, since I love healers so much, obviously Sage is very exciting for me. It's a barrier healer, so in Final Fantasy terms, that means that it's a shield healer, whereas White Healer Mage is a pure healer. That's what they're calling it, which means that it uses like regenerative heals, so heal over times, and then just big, fat, juicy heals. And otherwise, the barrier healers, instead of, right now anyway, the only barrier healer is Scholar, and Astrologian can be a shield healer too, but usually when you have shields, your heal potency is not as high, like your heals are just not as strong as a White Healer Mage. So, when Sage first was announced, or like we first learned a little bit about it and got like a picture and things like that, I think it was in February, I actually was more excited for Reaper, even though I'm not really that big on playing DPS. But the reason why was I just didn't really like the weapons that Sage got. I was like really disappointed because White Healer Mage has Cane, which is pretty cool. I think there's a lot of great canes in the game that can be very extra, because I love an extra glam. Like, I want my weapon to be flashy, I want it to be big, I want it to stand out and really be part of the look. And Scholar has a dimpy little book, very boring. Astrologian does have a cool weapon. It's got like a little Yu-Gi-Oh card holder thing, and then it's like a circular, I don't even know what they call it. The Astrologian's is neat looking, but it's not quite as flashy as White Healer Mage, since it just sits on your back and doesn't like pop over your shoulder or anything like that. So I was really hoping Sage would get something cool. And I know a lot of people really like the Sage weapon, which is called a Newlith. I have mixed feelings. I like the concept of it. I like that it's like 4 different guns. I think they're supposed to be like laser gun-ish things that float around you. Like, I like the idea of having several weapons floating around you. That sounds really cool, and it looks really cool. But the like general shape of the weapon, like not huge fan of it. To me, it looks a little bit like bug legs. So, I mean, it's probably the job weapon. Like, you know how every job gets their own job gear. Like the dancer level 80 job gear, which is incredibly beautiful. That like red crop top thing with the skirt and the chains, like that. So yeah, every class always gets job gear, every expansion, usually at like the max level. Although throughout like the ARR and Heaven's Word, you get it sometimes a couple different ones, I think, because the leveling ranges are more than 10 levels. But anyhow, I'm hoping that there will be more skins available, like I'm sure there will be, and that I'll like some of them, because I wasn't like super keen on the way that they look in all of the stuff they've released, but I'm really certain that's part of the job gear set. So I'm, like I said, I'm thinking and I'm hoping there's gonna be some other weapon skins for the new list, and I'm sure that I'll like some of them because I like the general concept of them floating around you. I just feel like right now they're kind of like the shape is really like a tentacle or a bug leg, you know? Okay, so moving on from the Sage weapon. The real reason I'm excited about Sage is because it's new, duh, but it also does look really cool. It seems like a couple of the skills essentially heal while you do damage, like simultaneously at the same time. Double effect. One of them is called Cardia. This is a buff, a single target buff, which you can place on yourself or on anyone else in the party. And every time you hit that boss, the person you place the buff on gets healed. You're not even doing anything, like you don't have to actively heal them. You just hit the boss. Like, what could be better? Okay, I don't know. Like, it's so cool. So I think that'll be super useful as a healer. You can just slap it on the main tank and then deal damage. It might be possible that Sage will be neck and neck with White Healer Mage for the most damage output. Right now, apparently, White Healer Mage is the strongest of the healers and usually can deal the most damage. I guess if you know what you're doing. But I wonder if Sage will give the White Mage some competition, because if you can just do damage and then you're simultaneously healing, like, low-key feels broken, but I'm sure the potency of the heal won't be that high, because again, it would be probably really broken if it is. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts off broken and gets nerfed, because that's kind of how these things go, so we'll see. And then aside from that Cardia skill, there is an Aoe Heal that's like very similar. You do an Aoe line attack, so that's a DPS skill, and then as you do that, the people around you get healed because there's like a circular heal around your character. So anyone who's like standing close enough would get healed. So it sounds really cool because it's like the heal is just a side effect almost, but you're still dealing damage. And most of the classes don't really have anything like that. I mean, obviously you have heal over time skills that you can use, but you know, Astrologian and White Healer Mage, if they're casting a heal, they're casting a heal. It doesn't do damage. You know, Scholar can kind of damage deal while healing because you can click on the fairy skills to heal, but it's not really the same as Sage in my opinion, or it does not seem to be, because Sage is literally both at the exact same time as part of the same skill. It just seems really cool. So I'm super hyped about that. It also has has some other skills, like shields that you can break to give a second heal. So you can choose if you want to use the shield as a shield, or if you want to break it and heal your party again. Sounds awesome. It just sounds awesome. So obviously we don't know that much about Sage yet, but from what I've watched in the videos that people have uploaded analyzing the skills, because some people actually watched the live letter and then translated the tooltips that they saw in the video. When like Yoshi or whoever was playing hovered over the tooltip, it was in Japanese and people translated that. So that's how we know what we know about the skills I was mentioning. It is possible for them to change between now and November, but I'm thinking probably won't be that much change. If there is change, it might be like the potency of the heals or things like that. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but I'm pretty hyped for Sage. Now that you know how I feel about Sage, let's move on to a different job. Let's just talk about healers in general. White Healer Mage isn't really getting that much of a change. I guess Divine Benison is going to be a charge skill now. So maybe that means we'll get to use it more than once and then have a cooldown. And maybe it'll be like twice and then cooldown. I don't know. Doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. Like, yes, I use that skill, but it doesn't really sound like they're ruining it, so it's fine. All healers will have their casting time reduced for the damage skills that they do. So it'll be as fast as Astrologian's Malefic. So Malefic isn't getting any faster, just everybody else is. The LB3 is going to be 50 yalms instead of 30. Really hyped about this. There was one time I was in Puppet's Bunker, which is a near crossover raid. A lot of people died, like most of my raid died, and most of my personal party died, because some people didn't soak up the damage from the meteors, so they exploded and killed us all, or most of us, but some of us lived somehow. And I was trying to LB3, which raises the entire party with full HP and full mana. It didn't reach. It reached like 2 people, and they were not healers. So my other healer was still dead. Yeah, we ended up wiping at the end because my LB3 didn't reach enough people, and if it had, it actually would have probably turned the raid around, because we could have held the boss down long enough to get the healers, the other healers in the other parties up, and it was sad. So excited to see that change for all of the healers. But yeah, for White Mage personally, I just don't have much to say, because it doesn't sound like it's really getting any negative changes or that big of positive changes. Plus they were very like ambiguous about what it would be getting. They did say that all the healers would also get a single target buff, but I don't really know anything more about that. Next, let's talk about Astrologian, the Saving Scholar for last. Astrologian is getting changed from a both healer to a pure healer, because now they're doing this separation of pure healers and barrier healers, barriers being shield, pure healers being like regen/heal over time. So it's like fat heals and regen versus shields, basically. Although I would be surprised if Sage doesn't have some fat heals. Like Scholar, a little bit lacking in the fat heals, but I feel like Sage probably won't. But anyhow, Astrologian used to have Diurnal and Nocturnal Sect. Well, it still has some until November. And they're getting rid of that. They're changing Divination so that instead of being a party-wide DPS buff, it will only apply to yourself, and depending on which arcana or like the symbols you collect, switch between regen healing and shield healing. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It's also pretty unique in that the other healers cannot give a damage buff to party members, whereas Astrologian can. But they're getting rid of the divination AoE DPS buff, apparently. That's what it sounds like. Not sure if they're getting rid of the single target DPS buffs though, because that was another major part of Astrologian. So yeah, to me, I don't really like that they're becoming pure healer only. I think having the choice in that class was really cool, unique, and just, yeah, it was something different. A lot of people are saying that Astrologian is losing its identity, and I can understand that completely, because the other healers will now be able to cast just as quickly. So, like, Ast used to be the fastest caster of the healers, which was another reason why some people might prefer it over White Healer or Scholar. Like, these are some of the things you would think about when choosing which healer you like the most, right? So, that's gone. The sects are gone. And so is the raid-wide, or I should say party-wide DPS buff. So, yeah, I don't know. But it's not as bad as Scholar, who gets nothing. Scholar's getting a haste buff. Obviously, Scholar's getting the same stuff that the other healers are getting in terms of the single target buff and the LB3 being 50 yalms, but as for job changes, there's like none. They're just getting this haste buff that can be used on the whole party while in combat mode, because most haste skills, aside from sprint or like gap closers and stuff, cannot be used in party. Like, the only AoE buffs we have to increase speed is like Peloton, and yeah, you cannot use it in combat. So, you know, I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I do think it could be useful for new content. Like, when you're learning new content and you don't know what the mechanics are, you might be a little bit slow to dodge, so maybe this haste skill would help you avoid a few more mechanics and get hit less. It does apparently also give mitigation, so maybe it's, I mean, we don't know how big that shield is, but hey, maybe that will be useful, because you can dodge out of a mechanic, or if you do get hit, well, you got the mitigation. So yeah, hard to say, but it's not like it's a quote-unquote necessary skill, because there isn't any content that requires you to have a skill like that, and they can't make any that does, because if they do, then you'd be forced to have a scholar in your party, and like, they can't do that because it would mess up the queuing system and stuff. So yeah, it's disappointing, because rather than a haste skill, I think what we want to see for Scholar is some quality of life changes. So when you play Scholar, if you die, you get back up, you lose all your sparks from Ether Flow. You need these sparks to cast your best heals, aside from the fairy heals. But guess what? The fairy's gone too. Like, when you die, you lose everything. White Healer Mage and Astrologian both have like skills they can use if they die when they get up to heal themselves. White Healer Mage is Tetragrammaton, Regen, and Benediction is the big one. Benediction gives you full HP. The Astrologian has Essential Dignity, which has 2 charges, so you can use it twice. They also have something called Celestial Intersection, which is not as powerful, but it is a decent heal, and depending on the sect you're in, will apply either a heal over time or a shield, so it's also a good heal to use when you get up. And also, just like White Healer Mage, Astrologian has Aspected Benefic, which will either apply a shield or a regen heal onto you depending on your sect. So I'm just saying, they have stuff to use. Like, if White Healer Mage doesn't have Tetragrammaton or benediction, they can still regen themselves and get some HP back quickly. Whereas with Scholar, it's like you have nothing but chain heals. Like, you have to chain emergency tactics with Adloquium to get a decent sized heal to get your HP back. Or you have to use Recitation to get a spark so you can use Excogigation, which will heal you as long as you're under 50% HP. But that heal doesn't bring you to full, although it should bring you high enough to save you. If that's on cooldown, you can use Recitation and Indomitability, which is a raid-wide, or I should say an Aoe Heal. But the problem is, there are too many situations, at least in my experience, where I die and everything's on cooldown and I have nothing. I have no way to heal myself quickly because I don't have a regen skill. And my fairy's dead. So the fairy is the other really big problem. The fact that it dies when you die is really frustrating because it casts really slowly to get it back up. It's like a 2-second cast, or I don't know, it feels longer, but it's probably like 2 seconds. So anyhow, I really think a good quality of life change would have been to make the fairy either instacast or have it just get up with you when you get up instead of having it die off, because if you don't have any of your other skills, well then you could use one of the fairy skills, like the heal over time skill. So, or even pop out Seraph if you need to, like, I don't know, man. But yeah, even with the fairy, some of the better healing skills, like Fey Blessing, which is, I want to call it instacast, but we'll get to that. It's a faster casting heal. It doesn't cost sparks, but it costs like 10 points from your fairy meter, which is, again, so silly. It's like everything that Scholar does has a cost, or like White Healer and Astrologian just gets to do stuff. I'm like, what the heck? But yeah, so what I was just saying about the fairy being slow, the only instacast heals you really have are Lustrate and Indom, which both cost sparks, and Indom has like a 30-second cooldown, so like, yikes. Like, it takes 2 resources. It literally is like, okay, we're taking a resource and we're having a cooldown. Nice. Where the fairy skills also have cooldowns, by the way. Like, all of your AoE skills are just like cooldown. Meanwhile, White Healer Mage can pop as many of Flattises as it has Lily's for, so it can do like 3 in a row. And it's no cooldown. Size has like a 30-second cooldown, but it's like, it's unfair compared to Scholar. It's like really unfair. But anyhow, the Scholar, the fairy casts its skills pretty slowly, so half the time I'll cast my Fey Blessing to heal the party, Aoe Heal, and the healer has already done like 2 of Flattis. I want to say Solace. I can't remember if Rapture or Solace is the AoE, but it'll have done 2 of them, or like in a size, and that party will just be healed, and my fairy will just have wasted itself. Like, okay, cool, it's in cooldown now. Like, it didn't even do anything because they were already healed thanks to the better healer. Yeah, and it's not even that they're better because they're better because their job is just better. So yeah, obviously, as you can tell, I think that there were some changes that could have been made to Scholar that would have been a lot better than just giving it a haste skill, even if that haste skill has mitigation. But I did hear a rumor from somebody in my FC, my guild, if you will, that there would be some very reworking, but I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if they, I don't know what's going to happen to that, but if they do, it'd be nice if they just make it cast instantly, please. Okay, so I think I'm done talking about the healers. I know I talked about them a lot, so there's just a couple more things I want to talk about. Firstly, I'm really excited about Verholy becoming AoE. That's a red mage heal skill. I don't really play red mage that much. I prefer ninja if I'm forced to DPS, but I do your res is actually faster than any other healer in the game because you have dual cast, which the second skill you cast is always insta-cast, so you could just cast res super quickly all the time. And then of course they also have For Holy, which is currently a single target heal, but it's a pretty decent heal. So having it go AoE is pretty cool, and I think it could be pretty helpful to the party, you know, if mechanics are getting rough and the healer needs a hand or something, or one of the healers is dead, or, you know, stuff like that. So I think that's just another exciting change. Finally, I want to touch on Summoner. I don't play Summoner, but if you play Final Fantasy or if you've watched the live letter, then you'll know everyone is excited about Summoner. Normally, Summoner can summon Eggies, which are like puny little representatives of the primals. And now, what you will summon will be just like the primals. It'll look just like them: Garuda, Titan, and Ifrit. So they look super badass, and I guess while you summon it, all of your skills change to be aspected like that primal. So if you summon Ifrit, then your skills will be fire aspected. So it just looks really cool. The animations are going to be really bomb, and just sounds really cool too. So that's most of what I was excited about from the live letter. However, I would like to give a shout out to the Bunny Boys. That was not part of the live letter, but since I'm talking about things that, you know, kind of excite me about what we learned, you know, that's coming in Endwalker, I just want to mention that they are like K-pop idols, okay? They are beautiful. I'm probably not going to become one because I don't want to pay $10 every time I want to change race. But I will make my retainers into Bunny Boys. I'm pretty excited. I designed one using I was about to call it Bunchmark, like bunny benchmark. I designed one using the Endwalker benchmark, and I wish that he could be my boyfriend. I will probably have trouble not hitting on people playing Bunny Boys because they're so gorgeous. So yeah, I'm so hyped for Endwalker, even though some of the changes with the Scholar and Astrologian are not what I would have hoped for. I will definitely give them a chance and see how they've changed and try them out once Endwalker does come out. But I'm hella excited for Sage, and I'll probably try Reaper too, just because the Scythe is a really cool weapon. Like, who doesn't want to walk around with a scythe? And I know they're going to make some really awesome glamours that are all glowy, like the relic weapons. Ooh, it's gonna be fantastic. So, there it is. Me babbling on and on about Endwalker and the potential job changes that we're seeing for it. If you play Final Fantasy, then please do tell me what you're the most excited about. You know, like, what job do you play? Is there anything that you are really hyped to play? Or like new skills that you're excited to see added? Or is there anything that you're